Hello. Welcome. Welcome to our Facebook Live on women and blended families. And to our listeners, we are so excited that you have joined us. We want to have some fun and have some practical, helpful conversation for women in blended families. Now, maybe your husband is wanting to join also. We'll let him. We'll let men watch. In fact, I'll bet Ron Deal is watching us. We wouldn't let him join because our event is for women tonight. But we are thrilled to have men also. And we just want to offer support for women on a similar journey. And as we get started, if you know other women that you want to invite, just tag them in the comments. Let them know what you're watching and that they can also join us. But there is a wealth of knowledge with the ladies who are joining me tonight, and we're going to introduce them here in a moment. But we have 70 years together in blended family life collectively. So we have a lot of experiences. We feel like we have a lot to offer, and just to help you know what we've learned in our years in our blended families. And we hope you don't repeat some of the same mistakes that we have made. And we also just want to offer some nuggets of wisdom. But my name is Gayla Grace. I serve on the FamilyLife blended team as a writer and a speaker. I've been married to my husband, Randy, for 27 years this year. And I'm a mom and a stepmom to 5 kids. Our kids now range in age from 21 to 37. So we are recent empty nesters and loving that season. We live in Conway, Arkansas. So I'm going to let the other ladies introduce themselves now and let you know who's going to be with us tonight. And Sandi Patty, I'll let you start. Most of you know our beloved singer and performer, Sandi Patty. We're so thrilled to have her join us. And then Lori McGregor and also Cheryl Shumake. We are all moms and stepmoms, and we are thrilled to be here.
Yeah. Thank you, Gayla, and thank you, Blended and Blessed. So excited to be able to just have a conversation because I think women become better women in the company of other women. And
Right.
So we get an opportunity to be with you tonight. My husband, Don, and I, we've been married 27 years as well, Gayla, this year. And when we got married, I had 4 kids. Don had 3 kids. And then 6 months into our marriage, we adopted our youngest one. My husband is adopted, and so there are a lot of layers there that just led us to adoption. We now we're empty nesters too, and I know that sometimes our kids worry about us and think, oh, our parents are so sad and bored. It's awesome. And yes, I did say it out loud. But our kids' age, the range is from 37 down to 26. So we're just a little bit ahead of you, Gayla, just a tiny bit. And we have 10 grandkids, which I hope we'll talk about because that's another unique dynamic in blended family. 10 grandkids and 1 more grandkid on the way. So we live in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and it's my delight to be with you all this evening.
That is wonderful. Thanks, Sandi. Lori, how about you introduce yourself?
Thanks, Gayla. I'd love to. Well, let's see. I have been married to Kirk for 10 years. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary in February. I brought 2 children into our marriage from a previous marriage. I have twins, Sarah and Matthew. They are now 22, so they were 12 when we married. And Kirk brought 2 kids into our marriage from his previous marriage. We have Alex is 15 and Abby is 14. So they were 4 and 5, and the twins were 12 when we married. We live in Dallas, Texas, and we also work with FamilyLife Blended. I also have a full-time job in addition to ministry. I am an OBGYN here in Dallas, so I spend my days bringing new life into the world, which is pretty awesome. It's just an awesome job.
That is.
We are not quite, it's fantastic. We're not quite empty nesters. It'll be a little while still. Actually, we'll probably never be an empty nest, but we can get to that later. But our oldest is off at college. in Washington State, and our younger two are predominantly with their mom about 25 miles away, and we have them standard visitation like every other weekend. And then
Great.
Matthew's with us full time.
Great. Thanks, Lori. And Cheryl, love to hear from you.
Well, thank you so much, Gayla. I am so excited to be here. Hi, everybody. I'm Cheryl, and Jonathan and I have been married for 14 years. I brought one bio daughter into the marriage, and he brought two bio children and a stepdaughter from his former marriage into the marriage. They're all ours. We love them. They love us, and it's great. And I am a brand new grandmommy. So I am so excited. And Lori, we're empty nesters, honey. I can't wait for you to join the bunch. It is the best ever. It is the best ever. Our kids range in age from 37 to 23. So we are right in that same age range as well. I'm an author, Bible teacher, blended family coach, the founder of Stepmom Sanity, and we are lifelong Michiganders. We make our home in Northville, Michigan, which is kind of like right in between Ann Arbor and Detroit. If you know the Wolverines and you know Motown, we're right in between the two.
Well, for us Southerners, Cheryl, you are in the north and you're in cold country.
It is cold and rainy today. We do not put up our winter gear in Michigan until July. So yes.
Yeah, that is foreign to us. All right, ladies, let's get started. Let's start by sharing something humorous about your step family. Now we're going to get to some of the hard things that we've walked through because we all understand the hard road of step families. But I know in my early years, it was helpful for me to hear stories of laughter and stories that just were a little lighthearted. And so I want to start with that. I want to hear something from you that is just a short, humorous story about your blended family.
Okay, well, I'll jump in. There are so many. Like I was trying to think of one, and there are so many. But the one that stands out right now is when the kids were younger, they were just insistent that our family circle was not going to be complete without a dog. Okay, and they campaigned. I mean, they ran a campaign like nobody's business to get a dog. But Jonathan had developed allergies to animals. And so we just said no pets because we knew that whatever pet they got, whether it was hairless or not, we were going to have to take care of it. So we go out of town and we leave the kids at home. They were a little bit older. And when we come home, there's an aquarium in the garage in my husband's parking spot where there was not an aquarium before with all kinds of aquarium accoutrements. And our kids, they went to the pet store and they bought all of this paraphernalia, but they did not buy a pet. Instead, they went out on the street somewhere and they found a frog because they figured that the no pets policy would extend to animals that were bought and not found. So they were like, wow, they were trying to like work their way into getting a pet into the house. Of course, I didn't fly. We got rid of everything. And some of them are still in therapy about this today. But, what I love about it is that it was the first time that they did something together, right? On their own, even if it was in direct opposition against us.
Right.
They did it together. And we were just so excited, that they came up with this scheme and tried to run it against us. So
yeah, but that's the kind of stuff that can bond relationships in step families, right?
Absolutely, yes. It does.
Okay, I'm gonna piggyback off of that because we were the victim of the 42-page PowerPoint presentation on why we need a cat from my stepdaughter Abby. This was about almost 4 years ago, and she's like, "Can we get a cat? Can we get a cat? Can we get a cat?" And my husband is more of a dog person. I love cats, but we travel. This is all pre-COVID. We were traveling, and with not all the kids were here all the time, and then one headed to college. We were just like, we don't need any pets. We did inherit one step dog, my kid's dog from their dad's house when he moved out of state, actually. So we inherited the dog. So he was our step dog. So we had the step dog, but they're like, no, we need a cat. So 42 pages of PowerPoint presentation on how much it costs to take care of a cat and why we need a cat. And so we were like, fine, we'll get a cat. So we decide we're going to get a sibling pair. And so we find this cute little pair of kittens on next door, and Kirk and I go to pick up the cat, and one of them's gone already. And we're like, oh man, but this is a cute little black cat, and his name was Lando Catrissian. And so who can turn down a cat named Lando Catrissian? And so the kids were super thrilled. And then we're like, well, we need one more. We don't want it to be alone. So then we find more. And in the end, we end up with 3 cats. We named them all after Star Wars characters. And guess who has the bulk of the cat responsibilities? My husband, the non-cat person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So he's always like, Abby, go to the cat box. Abby, go to the cat box. So I try to just take a step back as stepmom and not be the one who's telling her what she needs to do. But so that's our story on pets in the house. So.
Oh goodness. Wow.
Well,
yes, 3 cats.
3 cats. Bless you, and bless you. That's all. That's all I have.
And one has completely imprinted on my husband, and he's just like, I'm not a cat person. This is ridiculous. And she just loves him to death. Yeah.
Sometimes I'll say to my husband, "You treat our dog nicer than you do me," but just occasionally I throw that out. When we got married, we had 7 kids and we adopted. So we had a lot of last names, like when you think of an intact family, you think, like when I was growing up, our family name was Patty. So anybody in the household could answer the name Patty residence. But in a blended family, you have a lot of different last names. And
right.
So I'll spare the long story of why this got to be a deal, because so we thought, okay, what could we do? Could we just for fun take little pieces of everybody's name and put them all together? So my kids, their dad is Helvering. So if we took Hel, and then if we did P for Patty, Sandi Patty, and then LIS for pestless, but then that was helpless, and that just felt a little bit too soon, right? It just felt. So we ended up putting all the letters in just like a lunch bag, and we pulled them out one at a time. Came out with this long name, Ganisala, which means nothing to anyone. We don't use it at restaurants. We don't answer the phone. But it was one of those things that we said, okay, we're acknowledging there's a lot of difference here. Here's a way. So even now, the kids will refer to us when we're all together. All right, Ganisala family, let's do this. And it's just kind of one of those funny, sweet ways that everybody was able to put their arms around something. So
right.
I don't recommend it, but
Sandi, what I love about that is blended families are constantly trying to find identity. Who are we within this family? Because we're 2 different units that are coming together. And what y'all did was help form some identity within your blended family. I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah, it'll make a huge difference.
You haven't shared a story yet, Gayla.
Well, I think about when my daughter Jody was in high school, and my husband, Randy, had the privilege of walking her out on the field. You know how it is on homecoming night. Somebody gets to escort. And so he's walking her, but they're all lined up, all dolled out, about ready to go out. And one of Jody's friends looks at Jody and says, "Oh, I've never met your dad. Is this your dad?" She says, "Yes, this is my dad." And her friend says, "Wow, you look just like him." And she starts nodding her head and says, wait. No, but this is my stepdad. So I don't know how I can really look like him. But, it just cracked Randy up, because he says, well, I guess I'm growing on her and she has to keep me now because she looks like me. And it just kind of became a standard joke that people don't know how to react to comments like that, though. Her friend didn't know what to do once she had said that. And so, they just kind of laughed about it. But Randy loves to tell that story.
Those are fun. Sweet.
Yeah.
I loved his response too. I loved his response.
Yeah. Well, ladies, let's get into a little bit of some meat and kind of sharing some nuggets. I really want to start with talking about Mother's Day. This Sunday is Mother's Day,
Mhm.
and happy Mother's Day to everyone on here, whether you're a stepmom, a bio mom, a foster mom, an adopted mom, or some kind of maternal figure. Happy Mother's Day to you. But what I want to talk about is, Mother's Day is not just hard for stepmoms, although it can be. But I've had some hard years as a biological mom when my girls weren't exactly nice, or maybe my expectations were in places they shouldn't have been. I also think about our kids and our stepkids and how they experience Mother's Day. And I know some of you ladies were stepdaughters growing up in blended families. So I would love for you to just share your experiences, maybe of what you've learned in Mother's Days that have been hard, or maybe in growing up years, what we could help the ladies with as daughters as they celebrate Mother's Day. So who wants to help share about that?
Well, I'll say Mother's Day has so far been pretty smooth for me. I actually am a stepdaughter also. My dad and my stepmom have been married 35 years. So, as a stepmom now, I recognize that I didn't thank her enough. I didn't necessarily send cards and say Happy Mother's Day to my stepmom, or call. I just didn't. In retrospect, there are 35 years now that I could have been doing a better job of honoring her. And she is geographically much closer to me now. She's here in Dallas. And we've had some really special moments in the last 6 months or so that she's been here. And so I just really recognize that I could have done a much better job honoring her as a stepdaughter. And I'm blessed to say that my bonus kids, because we use the term bonus, have been very kind. And their dad, my husband, is good at having them think about me on Mother's Day also. Their mom is great. She's a wonderful mom, and she's just fantastic to them. So I really am just a bonus, and they call me bonus mom sometimes, and they've gotten little picture frames that say bonus mom. So I've had it very good as a bonus mom on Mother's Day.
But Lori, what that tells me is I bet there's some stepmoms on here who are listening and they haven't gotten the appreciation for the role they're playing. And what you're saying is sometimes it takes us to become adults before we realize how valuable these step relationships were in our lives. And I think that we talk about it a lot, that we often have to wait longer in the journey than we want before we begin to experience some rewards. But that doesn't mean they're not noticing. Maybe they just don't know how to express it, or they're just not ready to express it. So I think your encouragement is for stepmoms to understand, even if it's not being acknowledged, it doesn't mean it's not being seen and it won't be appreciated and expressed somewhere down the line. And I love that.
Yeah,
I think it just go along with that, the idea that the honeymoon comes at the end for a blended family.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't have to.
Really good words. Yes.
I think so, yeah. I think we have to give the kids room as well, because I found that my bonus children, they expressed their gratitude and love on Mother's Days at different times. The oldest, she began almost immediately acknowledging me for Mother's Day. It was years before my second bonus daughter began acknowledging me, and then my bonus son, he began acknowledging me before her. So I think if we can just have a little bit of grace for ourselves and also for the children, and let them kind of lead that, and just remember it's one day. And I love, now there's a stepmother day the following week. Mother's Day is so sacrosanct.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, on the following Sunday of Mother's Day is Stepmom's Day. And so, isn't that great? And so it kind of takes the pressure off of our children to feel like they are, to just get them out of that loyalty bind and feel like they have to acknowledge us on Mother's Day. And it kind of helps us manage our expectations as well a little better. So.
Right. Yeah.
That's some good
I
feedback there, Cheryl. And Lori, I appreciated you sharing your story. So our Mother's Day is always a little tenuous for me because some of the most nurturing women that I've been blessed to have mentor me have never been moms. So
Hmm.
there's that group of women who are some of the best mothering women, but never have had children of their own. I think of my tribe at Women of Faith and the ladies that just poured into me and my family. And then in my journey as a stepmom, my stepchildren's mother passed away of breast cancer.
Oh, wow.
Um, and so I know that Mother's Day is very raw for them.
Hmm.
And I don't at all expect to be celebrated as the bonus mom in their life. And that has been one way I can serve them.
Hmm.
Cheryl, I think one time you said the phrase right size your expectations. And the way I can serve my stepchildren on Mother's Day is have zero, expect nothing, and appreciate everything.
Absolutely.
And so as the years have gone by, and I don't even reach out to them to even say, thinking about you today. That just feels disrespectful in a way.
Hmm.
But over the years, I've more and more, I'll get a text thinking of you today, Sandi. Glad you're in my life. And I know all that comes with those few words. And so, and then I'm having a great time watching my daughters and son be mothers and fathers and celebrating that. And my biological children celebrate me, and it's so sweet. But they also were able to celebrate their stepmom as well.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
because, listen, we need to use our villages. I don't care what they look like. We need to. And so I think right sizing our expectations and in a way expect nothing but appreciate everything um, frees me up. But I hope it also serves, especially my stepkids, on Mother's Day, because I
Right.
know it is a very raw day for them.
Right. I agree. I think sometimes as stepmoms, we forget the position that it puts our kids in for them to try to celebrate us. And we look at things through our lens and we forget to look at things through the lens of our kids. Now, I will say I think it's okay to ask our husbands to celebrate us. We are helping raise his kids.
That's a
And
good
so
point. Yes.
I do think that if we want to be celebrated and honored and the kids are with their mom, then we can ask our husbands that I am serving your kids and I'm doing the best I can. And it would be helpful to be honored. And then just for the biological moms out there, I just want to say, if there's been hard or tenuous situations with the stepmom in your life, to look also through a lens of grace for them. We know we don't always get it right as stepmoms, and we're doing the best we can. As a bio mom and a stepmom myself, I understand that it's difficult on both sides.
Yeah.
And we have to remember to offer grace to each other. And that's really part of what this call is about, is for us to support one another as women, regardless of what role that we're playing. We have some uniqueness that we bring to the table. And we want to celebrate each other and the gifts that we bring. So, those are just a few words, no matter what angle you're coming at for your Mother's Day. All right, let's move on to another situation that we talk about a lot in blended families home, and it really has to do with the role that we play, the ambiguity of our role. I think particularly for stepmoms, but this can also apply to biological moms who are raising kids alongside a stepdad. And how do we help them parent our kids? How do we determine what role we play as a stepmom? Do we step into a disciplinarian role, or are we kind of more in the background? I just would love to hear from you ladies as to what worked for you and what you would recommend for those that are listening to us.
I'll jump in on this one, Cheryl. Sorry, I
Go
saw
ahead,
you.
Sandy. No.
I saw you.
Because my head built the thinking tilt.
Ron Deal, I love how he says, it is just this ambiguous thing. It really is. There's no step family quite alike, and every step family is kind of the same. I mean, and it's just where do you find yourself? You know what? I lost the train of thought. So Cheryl, you go, and then maybe it'll come back to me.
It'll come back, Sandy.
It will come back.
That's where I'm at. So
It will come back. It definitely will. Gayla and Lori, Sandy, I learned to be very fluid with the role. First of all, none of us know what we're doing. None of us know. We don't. We don't know who we are in that role until we are in that role.
Right.
But that's true for anything, and it's not uncommon to take 2 steps forward and be pushed 3 steps back, because what's given in your biological family has to be earned in a blended family. It has to be allowed in a blended family. And
Cheryl, you're just soundbite city girl.
So are you, Sandy.
So I've learned to really kind of take my time. One of the things that was important for me to learn in terms of finding my role and learning how not just to survive, because who wants to survive? Who wants to get to the end of this and say, I survived my family, right? I want to thrive in it. I want to flourish, and I want to, as Sandy said so eloquently, serve my family as well. I want them to thrive. But one thing that was important for me was to develop a thick skin, but keep a tender heart. And I learned how to do that as the Holy Spirit taught me how to divorce my worth from my experience. Once I could do that, then I learned how to serve better in my family and how to be more fluid in the role and understand, today I'm a babysitter, tomorrow I'm an auntie, next week I'm a mom, the week after that I'm back to being a babysitter, and it's okay. And it really is okay.
Right.
And Ron's got a great graph of that idea, Cheryl, in the Smart Step Family book, of how, when you start off as a step parent, you really are starting off in that kind of role of almost like a babysitter. And the bio parent really has to transfer some authority to you in order for you to grow into that authority role. But it's not overnight, and it takes really years. And you're right, it's not a straight line. It's like, okay, you gain some ground and then you fall back some, and it feels like 2 steps forward and 1.5 steps back, and but it's just very slow process to get to where you do have some authority in that stepchild's life. But I think one of the other things to consider is that, like, what is your parenting style? Like, for me as a single parent, I was really permissive. I was single parent for 7 years. And so it wasn't that I didn't care, but I was, it was warm and loving, but there weren't a whole lot of rules. And then enter Kirk, and he's just by nature a little more authoritarian with more rules and a little more rigid. And that did not go well. And I didn't transfer him much authority to have, for my kids to respect that. And so we really clashed a ton in the beginning. And it wasn't as much an issue with my stepkids as it was with my bio kids and his role as stepdad. So my role as mom, I had to shift how I was parenting as mom to help my marriage. But that took years. That took years. And really early on, I didn't think I had to change. It just didn't even occur to me that I was going to have to change what I was doing to better my marriage and better my parenting and grow our step family.
Well, and
So
I
it was
think
pretty
too,
painful, pretty rocky.
yeah, and it can be painful as we learn how to parent together. The thing also that
Right.
can be helpful is to understand that just because we parent differently, it doesn't mean the other person is wrong. We can
Yeah.
parent different ways and still get to an end result that is good. And I
Mhm.
think it's really helpful for us to sit back and think about maybe what our how our spouse parents differently than us. And it doesn't mean that it's wrong. But oftentimes we do want to figure out how to compromise and how to come together for the sake of the kids so it's not confusing as to the parenting
Mhm.
that's going on. So,
Yeah.
And
Sandy, did your thought come back?
I did. It did come back. Thank you. I think over the course of my education, and there was a music teacher in my life who she shaped my love and understanding and appreciation for music. And she challenged me. And I played some sports, also in high school, and was a cheerleader. And you have coaches. And some coaches, they somehow know how to get the best out of people, and they somehow
Mhm.
and others don't. And I feel like, in a way, a step parent needs to be sort of like a beloved teacher, like in the best of scenarios, a
Mhm.
beloved teacher or a beloved coach. I still wouldn't want a beloved teacher or beloved coach say things to my kids that sometimes I can say, like, I need you to knock it off right now. I I don't feel comfortable. I tried that on with my stepkids, and it just didn't feel
Oh,
right.
ew.
It didn't feel at all the same.
Nor
And
does it go over well.
nor
No,
does
it
it
does
go over
not.
well at all. And I wouldn't want a coach who loved my kids to speak to them that way. And so I think, as a step parent, I want to be such an advocate for them, maybe
Mhm.
be an extra set of ears for
Mhm.
them.
Right. Right.
Um, but let Dawn be the heavy, and then I can come alongside and support him, of course, but
Right.
maybe offer some different a different thought. And the
Right.
same with him. And that took us a very long time,
Yeah.
to
I
figure
know it does. Yeah, it takes a while. And one of the things that we have to remember too is if there's disharmony in the home, it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It just means that you're learning how to parent together, and there's
Yeah.
going to
Mhm.
be some disharmony with that. Just
Yes.
remember that. I think that
Yeah.
helps us normalize the situation and recognize that we're not doing anything wrong.
And
Were you going to add something?
interesting, if I can just piggyback one thought on what you said about that, is early on, I felt like we got all the harsh words from both of our
Mm,
kids.
Mhm.
right.
And
Mm,
our therapist said, they're giving them to you because they know you're safe.
Yep.
hmm
Mhm.
And I went, oh, then bring it on. It's still not easy, but it helped me to reframe. And I guess I want to offer that as a word of encouragement to
Right.
the people who are listening, feeling like all I get are the gripes and all I get are the, why can't you? And they did, but to reframe it, that maybe a safe space has been created enough where they feel like no matter what they say, our love is not going to leave. And I think
Right.
that's a very big, that has been a great takeaway for me.
Yeah, that's like
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah.
eye-opening.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you know what else I love that you said, Sandy, was sometimes we have to try it on in regards to as we do something with our stepkids. And then we realize, oh, that doesn't fit me. That's not
Yeah.
really who I
Mhm.
am. That didn't go over so well. And we
Yeah.
back up and we do something different.
Right.
And then we keep moving forward. I
Mhm.
have really come to believe that Satan loves for us to feel defeated in our role and loves for us to just feel that we will never get this right because then we can't do the role that God has called us to. And as moms and stepmoms, we are important to our kids and the role that we could offer them. And so we need to be aware that if Satan tries to keep us defeated, we serve a God who is much bigger and can give us the power and the strength and the courage that we need to keep moving forward, even on days when it's hard. So y'all have shared some great wisdom. Let's quickly also kind of piggyback on in stepfamily life, the powerlessness we feel at times. I bet all three of you can talk about some situations that have been just out of control. You couldn't control it. For instance, for me, I think about things with my husband and I both had walked through divorce. So we had a former spouse in both homes. And, they don't always do things that you would do. They don't raise your kids the same way. There are circumstances that we are powerless over and we lose control over. And how do we manage that? Do y'all have situations that you think of that you feel you were powerless over, and how did you walk through it? How did you manage that?
I'm going to jump in, and because we've had, and maybe Cheryl and Gayla, you've had the same. We've had weddings.
Yes, we have weddings.
Weddings. Okay, weddings. That's all I need to say, right? But I will tell you the end of the story, that it turned out to be one of the sweetest and continues to be one of the pivotal things that has allowed us all to grow. Was when my first daughter got married. It was hard for her to decide, do I have both dads walk me down the aisle? Do I have stepdad walk me down the aisle and not my dad? Do I have, because they were both important to her. And I said, I think that before you even get married, you need to come to peace with where you're at in your relationship with your dad. Whatever that may, that's just good advice that someone told me. And so we had, so Don's former wife was there at the wedding because, of course, Anna's stepsisters. So we had a situation that Molly, who is my youngest stepdaughter, she fainted during the ceremony. And so she had just not eaten. So her brother picked her up and carried her down. So Molly's head was on my lap. Her mother saw what was happening 3 rows behind us. She came up and was rubbing Molly's feet. Don went to get a wet washcloth. And then my former husband came and was fanning her. And in that moment, I never could have imagined that could be a situation that would propel us forward for health and healing and common ground.
Wow.
And so I just say that it's to give yourself grace with time. It is a marathon. It is not a sprint.
Right.
And some of those moments that you pray for won't happen. And then when you least expect it, it's like, wow, there it is. And I don't know that anybody's role changed, anybody's job changed, but there was definitely a coming together for the sake of Molly. And I think the 4 of us literally looked at each other and went, okay, we can do better. We should be able to do better.
Right.
And I think that when you can step out and see the children and have a conversation, if you're able, and some are not, with your spouse's former spouse, and have a conversation and ask them, how can I help you parent? Then you really are setting yourself up for the child to win. And that's really, at the end of the day, what we all kind of signed up for.
That's exactly right, Sandi. That is what we signed up for. We want what is best for the kids. And the only way that we can get there is to sacrifice some of our own needs at times. But the rewards will come back twofold to whatever sacrifices we make. We have seen that in our family. That is a beautiful story. And I would bet that wedding, the memories of that wedding just carry y'all forward. I mean, who would have ever thought something like that with all 4 of the parents gathering around.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm impressed because as I'm sitting here listening, I'm thinking, oh, this could go either way. Like this could either turn out really great and bonding for all the parental people involved, or this could go south and, her mom's coming over and she's like, I got this, back off. I could see where it could have gone either way. And I
very much. And
that her heart had softened and she recognized what you wanted, what was best for her daughter.
yes.
And that you weren't trying to take over her role. It was all that mattered in at that moment was taking care of her. And you all came together to do that. And I just think that's so beautiful because really there are other people that it would not have gone nearly as well. And I think
I would have predicted it wouldn't have gone like that. Yeah. But in the moment, it did.
But and don't you think that God orchestrates things like that at times? Things that there's no way that we can explain. That is simply a matter of God orchestrating things and details in a way that bring relationships together. And
I just see softening of the heart,
Yes.
Just softening of her heart to just help her see, remove the scales or however you want to look at it. Just that she was just like, you're not stepping on anybody's toes. You're just doing what she needs.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, guys, I want us to move into a few questions. So Family Life, we get questions a lot of times in different ways where step families are asking for help. And so I want us to try to address some of these. I'm going to read a question and then whoever wants to jump in, just feel free. But the first question is this. My twin daughters are 14, have said that my husband, their stepdad, cannot attend their soccer games. This creates conflict in our marriage. Can I still attend without my spouse? What input would you give to this lady?
I'm not really for an either or proposition. I really do believe in this and that. So I definitely would initially attend without my spouse because, presumably my adult husband can navigate those emotions better than my teenage kids. But I would open up the dialogue with my daughters and, kind of ask them, why is it important to you that he's not there, and tell them why it's important to him. I would take myself out of the equation. Tell them why it's important to him to attend, and then ask for a compromise. Maybe he doesn't attend all the games, but maybe he comes to 2 of the games. I think we can build commonality and teach empathy as well at the same time. And that goes a long way towards creating an atmosphere where bonding can happen in a family.
Right.
I like that. I think it also shows that, you and your husband you're a team, and, showing that bond there, that unity in making the decisions. And, and I think it's okay for the mom to attend some of the games because it's good for you to have that one-on-one time with your bio kids to, continue to cultivate that bond. And then it paradoxically draws them closer to the step parent because they know they're not going to lose that relationship with the bio parent. And so then their hearts are softened to that relationship. And so I think, kind of taking it stepwise and then coming to some agreement that hey, this is my husband. He loves you. He wants to support you. He wants to cheer you on. Let's give it a try. I like that.
Yeah, and I can't help but think about I wouldn't want a 14-year-old to think that they rule the roost. I mean, that they make decisions for me. I don't think that's healthy for teenagers, and so I think it's okay for us to step in and say, well, absolutely, she can attend without her spouse, but perhaps the compromise, Cheryl, and there really needs to be a conversation as to what is at the root of that, and try to get to what is at the root of it and address that.
Right.
So, yeah. All right, let's go to another one. Our adult daughter, who has 2 young children, is dating seriously. We're starting to realize how much a blended marriage will affect us. And how do we, as grandparents, learn to receive other children into the family as new grandkids? Sandy, I want to throw this one at you because I'll bet you can offer something.
First I want to say I so wish my parents were here because they did that very thing. And they just opened their arms wider and just said, okay, I think it's easier to use a common papa and nana word than mom and dad. So all of the kids called my parents papa and nana. Now all of our grandkids call us Nani and Poppy. And it's given even our kids a common name to call us.
Yeah.
And it's been really sweet because before it would be Don and Mom or Sandy and Dad. And then there's our youngest who's adopted. Incidentally, when he was younger, would always say, how come I never get to go anywhere on other weekends? How come I don't have other parents? It's just so everybody has their own perspective. But I think being a grandparent, Cheryl, I'm curious to see if you are finding this. Even as the kids, when the babies were little, my daughter started calling Don Poppy instead of Don.
Yeah.
And it was the first time they, on their own, just chose to the commonality of our names. And so I think grandchildren do a very sweet thing. And if I'm looking at my parents, because it sounds like the person who asked the question, it's more they're gonna, or do they assimilate the grandchildren? And I think they just, at watching my parents, they just try to have a unique relationship with each one. And that takes intentionality on their part.
Right.
But as far as they called my parents Papa and Nana from the very beginning and sort of gave us an hour's space. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like not yours, mine. My dad is just such a fun guy and my mom is so musical that there was something for everyone, whether it was cooking in the kitchen. So they gave us an hour's space. And that is one thing grandparents tend to is help create an hour's space.
Yes.
So I was going to say, I have an interesting perspective as the middle generation. So I have my dad and my stepmom who embraced my kids. We didn't even blink. It was just, here's grandma and grandpa.
Right.
And then when Kirk and I got married, they embraced Kirk's kids. So it's multiple steps. It's a step. She's my stepmom and they're my stepkids. And they're just like, okay, we're still grandma and grandpa. Like nothing's changed. And the kids have done well, with a whole new set of grandparents. And it's, somehow that grandparent-grandchild relationship transcends.
Yeah. That's awesome. Cheryl, what would you add to that?
I was going to say there is such neutrality to being a grandma. I'm abuela for abuela. And
Love it.
And I'm finding that my oldest bonus daughter, that's what she has started calling me. And I imagine that at some point the other kids will as well. But there's such neutrality with being a grandparent. And then you have this innocent baby that people are sort of rallying around and loving on. And we all have this, we may not have a biological bond, but we all love this baby, and that's uniting our hearts together. And and I would say too, Sandy, to kind of piggyback on something you said, I think this is where we kind of differentiate being intentional from emotional connection. Like we're called to love, and it's a command. And I can be intentionally kind. I can be intentionally patient and thoughtful. I can open up. I can create activities around things that my grandkids, if I had, older grandkids, or step grandkids, that they would enjoy. And I can give them attention, and I can get to know them, and make them feel as if they're a priority as well. And now when you add praying for your new grandkids to that, then it won't be long before those very practical acts of love will lead you to emotional connection. But we just start with the practical things,
Right.
and then we grow to love. We grow to
Yes.
connection.
Right. And I think that's applicable in all step relationships, Cheryl, not just grandparenting ones. Yeah. I look forward to that. I don't have any grandkids yet, so I'll come call on y'all when I have some advice.
My grandmother used to say, if I had known having grandkids was so fun, I would have skipped the middleman. So that is how I feel.
Good. Well, and then we can call Lori on how they come into the world.
That's right.
Yeah, I got you covered. I got you.
That's right. That's
There you
right. I
go.
love that. All right, ladies, one more dynamic I want to talk about that we really haven't covered has to do with adult stepchildren and within a step family home, adult kids. So here's a question that somebody sent in that said, I'm widowed and I'm married to a widow. We each have 3 kids, ages 22 to 30. What suggestions do you have for blended families with adult kids? Our 6 kids range from happy to unhappy about the blend. And the first thing I want to say about that is to recognize it's really normal that they're in different places. Some are happy and some are unhappy. And you know what? They might even trade places at times. Just because they're happy now, they might eventually walk through a season where they're not so happy. And I think we just continue to invest in those relationships, but understand we are friends to our adult stepkids. We're friends to our adult kids. I mean, I parent completely differently with my adult kids than I did when they were younger. So that was the first thing that I would say. But I'm curious what else y'all have to say.
Well, I have a thought on this. Kirk and I had the blessing to get to teach on Ron's new book called Preparing to Blend. We got to teach on it last week. And one of the chapters that he actually moved more towards the front of the book is on planning the wedding. So if you're able to do some discussion and some planning before you actually marry, that's ideal. That's not necessarily the case for most people, and not for the woman who wrote in the question, but involving the kids in the planning, whether they're young kids, teenagers, or even adult kids, just letting them know, hey, here's our plan, and involving them in it, see what they want to do, and then recognize that, like you said, Gayla, like they may be fine for a while, and then they're going to go through different stages of grief, and those are going to change, and they may seem okay with it at first, and then the actual wedding comes around and they're like, whoa, I'm not okay, because like it really makes them miss the parent who's gone.
Right.
That just grieving over time, it never stops.
And it can feel like another loss. Okay, they've lost their parent. Now the one that is remaining remarries. Now it feels like they lost that other parent to a new spouse. And so the grief process starts all over again. And we want to be sensitive to that.
I would add too, for both the spouses, that they are walking into some 22 to 30 years of known territory for each of these children, of history, of traditions, of stories. And now here come 4 people, kind of disrupting the landscape. So while the 2 of them are over here building their lives together, they have to remember there are 6 people over here as well. And some of them are going to be shell shocked when they come and ask dad for money. And he says, I got to talk to the wife, or, the wife might be shell shocked.
If he come to ask for money in the first place, if they're adults.
But it happens. And so I think we just also need to understand we have to respect the history there, and that there are 22 to 30 years of history that needs to be acknowledged in our blending. So
I think the other component is I was going to say kind of insider outsider status is kind of what you're speaking to, Cheryl, and like the the new spouse is really the outsider, and it's it can.
Well, and
it
I
can be
think
a tough
it's
spot to
interesting
be.
that they worded the question of we're both widows. In other words, there are not former spouses alive and well,
Right.
that we are literally by ourselves. And there's a part of me that does feel like you have the conversations, but maybe you don't ask for permission.
You're not asking for
But
permission.
you're asking for their blessing. And to say, we'd love for you to walk with us into this next season.
Absolutely.
Right.
But as adult children, and you said this earlier, Cheryl, hopefully the adult children can manage their stuff that's on their side of the line to do.
Yeah.
To be able to support the parents who may need companionship. So
Right. Exactly. I totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
Well, ladies, I've been given the 5-minute warning, which means that we're going to have to wrap up, and we want to honor the gals' times who are watching us. They might have kids to put to bed. I mean, you never know the stage they're at. So let's just conclude quickly with just in 30 seconds or less, what encouragement would you give to these ladies in blended families? I just would love to hear from each of you on that.
Well, I would say this. I know sometimes you probably sit down and you think, what in the world have I gotten myself into? But I want you to know that God is sovereign and He has ordered your steps, sis, and He loves you deeply. So you were made for this. You were made for this, and your family is exactly what you need to be conformed to the image of Christ. And you have been equipped to get His well done. You really have.
Right. I love that. Absolutely.
I think
So for me,
go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Sandy. I was going to say two things for me. One is that God can just turn anything around. He can take a mess of a situation, divorce, just loss of a, like whatever it is, and He can just turn it around and create something so new and so beautiful that it just baffles me at times. Yeah. And in that, I think when you're navigating that new dynamic of your family, like you have to find your people.
Yes.
And don't go through this alone. You have to find people who have walked that journey before, who understand. You're not going to find somebody with your exact same blend, but you need to find someone who's walking a similar road and who's been there before, and know that you are not alone, and you are loved. You are loved by God, and you are loved by so many women. They just want to help you.
That's
right.
good.
And just Cindy, just before you go, I want to mention Lori, along those lines. So FamilyLife Blended does have, we keep track of those who are doing virtual groups where people can join in with other blended families doing virtual groups. And in a minute, I'll talk about some of that. But go ahead, Sandy.
Well, I was just going to add to things that everyone has already said, but I do think that we must do our own work.
Yes.
And we've got to spend time understanding who we are, how is the pain, what has that done in our first relationship, so we don't make the same mistakes in our second. How has pain shaped us? And who are we really? And for me, that anchor is who I am in Christ. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't get crazy with all of this, but I am reminded of in John 13, when Jesus is washing the disciples' feet, because he knew he had come from the Father, and he knew he was going back to the Father. Therefore, he could serve. And I think having our lives tethered to the Heavenly Father of this great universe is the place that helps us be fluid. How'd you say that, soundbite girl? Be fluid.
Don't ask me to repeat anything. That was in the moment.
We talked about being fluid but steady of heart. Fluid with plans, but steady of heart. And I really love that. And if we can just remain tethered to who we know we are in Christ, the anchor will hold us no matter how it is swayed.
Mine
Amen.
is very similar, Sandy. It is really, we can't do this blended family journey without the Lord. And if we try to do it in our own strength or with our own senses of how to walk it, we're going to get it wrong. And we need to stay in a close walk with the Lord, but also know, as we've said, it is going to take longer than we want. There are going to be wilderness wanderings, and we have to persevere through some of that. We can't just quit when it gets hard. If
Right.
my husband and I both have had times that we wanted to quit. And I can tell you today, I'm so thankful that I didn't. And if you need help, get counseling. I've been there. Don't
Do your
be
work.
afraid. Don't be afraid of counseling. Find somebody who understands step families, but that can also be an added bonus if you get stuck in patterns or unhealthy situations that you can't get out of. So,
And Gayla, I
love
just want to add one thing. Jesus
Yes.
had a stepdad.
He
Yes.
sure did. I always say
I
that,
know.
but he
He
was
did.
a stepson. He
Right?
Yes.
And
I love
how
that.
would you like to be the stepdad of Jesus?
I know.
Sometimes we think Jesus can't understand everything, but he was a step kid.
Yeah.
Right.
He was
I
a
know.
stepdad.
I know.
And I just love that he even knows that part of the journey.
I
I
always
know.
a step
That's a
family
great point.
really is one of the best pictures of God's redemption in the earth. There's such redeeming power that is visible in a step family.
Yep. Amen.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Amen.
very much so.
Well, to our listeners, we do want to hear from you. If you have enjoyed this, benefited from it, please put something in the comments. I've seen a few comments already that say you have, but we do want to hear from you tonight. I don't know if we'll do this again, but we might. And so we would love to know your thoughts about that.
I think we should.
I think
I know it's
there
been
was
fun for
so much
us
we didn't
too,
get to.
honestly, and we have so much more to share because
Yes.
remember we have 70 years collectively in our blended
Oh my
family.
goodness. No.
We have a lot to share. So,
Well,
but
I've
we
got
do
another
want
25 as a stepdaughter too. So
there you
almost
go.
100.
That's exactly. There you go. But listeners, we do want to stay connected to you. So follow us on social media. There's been many links that have been put up in the comments. Our website, you'll find articles and podcasts and events that we offer because we're here to serve you. We're here to serve blended families and equip you and encourage you. And so thank you for joining us tonight. And to our sweet ladies who have been on here, Cheryl and Sandy and Lori, you guys are the best. Thank you for just what you bring to the table and for taking the time and energy to join us tonight. I'm so thankful for you. All right, guys, we're going to sign off.
Thanks,
Good
Gayla.
to be here. See you next time.